Hi everyone, welcome to the Marks Group Dynamics 365 Tips and Tricks webinar for the month of February. So today we're going to be talking about the following three topics. First, how to troubleshoot workflows in the new user interface, the new unified interface. Second, we're going to talk about if you are missing a flow button up at the top of the menu, if you're unable to run workflows from the new user interface or unified interface. I always mix up those two. I'm going to show you how to enable that for your environment. It shockingly is not automatically enabled. I've had to fix this on a bunch of our clients, so I'm going to show you how to fix that up. And then finally, if you use a custom portal and you're using the unified interface, you might find that the change password or send invitation buttons are either not present at all, or they are giving you some sort of script error when you press them. So I will show you how to, or I'll kind of talk you through how to fix that. Unfortunately, our demo environment here doesn't have a custom portal, but I will show you how to, where you'll have to go to fix that. So let's get started with the workflow troubleshooting tip. Pretty frustrating in the new unified interface. You might find that, or you might have noticed that under the related section, which is where in the old classic unified or classic interface rather, you'll notice that there are background processes and process sessions, this area here, that made it really easy to find the specific instance of a workflow that may have failed or may be pending. And it was just really easy to find. But in the unified interface, you'll notice that under the related section, which is that equivalent area, it's not here. And if you try to manually add it, it'll look like it's added in the form setup, but when you actually come here, it's not going to be here. So I'm really hoping that they'll fix this in the future, hopefully with one of these release waves in 2020, but just in case they won't, and for the time being, I will walk you through how to troubleshoot that. It's not quite as easy as it used to be. So the catch is, with this, I did have I've got a waiting workflow process here, process session here. With the classic interface, you didn't have to know what the process name or the workflow name was that had failed. You could just know, oh, well, you know, something is wrong with this workflow. Some action didn't take place that I was expecting it to. So let's go and see what could have failed or what could be pending in this section. Unfortunately, with the unified interface, that is not the case, and you're going to have to somehow know the workflows that could be running or could be taking place on the form. One way to do that would be to show dependencies on a specific field if it's not populating like you would expect it to, but let's just assume that you're going to know or have a good idea of what workflow you're going to need to look at. So, like I said, in the classic interface, it's really easy. You would just click on the down arrow here to the right of the record name, select background processes or process sessions, depending on if it's a background workflow or real-time workflow. And then you could just double click that and open it up, and you would get some sort of informative error. In this case, it says you've exceeded the maximum number of characters in this field. You might be thinking, well, what field? We can expand the details here, and it'll call out the specific name of the field. In this case, it's the name field of the opportunity. And then it'll show the maximum allowed length if it's an error like this where you've exceeded the number of characters in a field. If it's a different error, generally these the error messages in the detail sections are actually pretty helpful. So if you expand that and try to read through the exception errors. Generally, you'll get some pretty specific information there, but so that's how you would do it from the classic interface. So I know that this workflow is called demo. It would be a little bit trickier if you don't know that information going into this. And like I said, you would have to do a little bit more digging into and maybe showing the field dependencies back in the form area. But let's assume that we know what the workflow name is. So we would select this gear icon in the upper right and then click Advanced Settings. When we do that, it's going to take us back to what looks like the classic interface, but we're just going to see the settings area. So you can expand that, but you're not going to see any other menu items up here. So if we go to Process Center and select Processes, because that's where our workflows live, we're going to see all of our processes here. You can change this view to all processes if you're not seeing it in My Processes. So I know that in this case, the workflow in question was demo. So I'm going to open that up. I already had it open. So, and then from here, we can click Process Sessions. So that's going to show all of the instances of this workflow being run on all records, not just the one that we had open previously. But from here, we can see if there are any pending or waiting or failed workflow instances, and then we can just double click them and open them up, and we'll see the same window that we saw. It just takes a bit longer, a bit more clicks to get here. And again, it's not quite as easy because you're going to have to know what the workflow is before you actually get here. Kind of frustrating. But again, hopefully Microsoft is going to fix this and add that capability this year. I would certainly hope. It's a pretty big omission. So that is how you would troubleshoot from both interfaces, really. But again, from the unified interface, you would go to Advanced Settings, come back to the Process area, find the workflow in question, and then select Process Sessions once it's open, and you'll see all of the instances of that workflow. Now in this case, like I mentioned, this error is specifically a character limit issue. So from here, you could do two things. You could either edit the name of the workflow to, fit within that limit, or you can go back to the specific field, back in the field area, and expand the character limit to, I don't know, a couple hundred characters, and allow a much larger range of characters in there. So those are two ways you could go about resolving that. Okay, so moving on to the next tip, we're gonna get that, the custom portal tip done. So like I said, we don't have a custom portal for this demo instance, so I'm just gonna talk you through what would be missing and how you would fix it. So if you're having issues with that, specifically the send invitation or change password buttons, menu buttons up here, they should appear up in this upper menu area, and they would appear under the contact entity. So in theory, you would select this and you should be able to see a change password or send invitation. Again, this is just if you use portals. If not, this is not relevant, but if you are missing those buttons, we can fix that. Generally, that just means that your portal solution is out of date and needs to be updated. lots of updates were happening with the unified interface. So to fix that, you can go to admin, you can type in admin.powerplatform.com, and that's going to take you back to the new Dynamics Admin Center. And from here, you can just select the environment that you need and then click Manage Solutions up at the top. Now they haven't completely moved everything over to the new admin center, so it's actually going to bring you to the old admin center to deal with your solutions here. But you would find, I think it's called, yeah, we don't have it installed, but we do have it. So try to expand this. If you use portals and you do have this issue, you could come back to this Manage Your Solutions area and find the Dynamics 365 portals, and then whatever portal you're using. We most frequently use custom or the partner portal. And then from here, you could check the version, and it'll most likely need an update. And you can just go ahead and where it says install here, it would say update or install update, something like that. And it did take, last time I did this, it took a good half an hour to an hour maybe. It took a while. But once it did update, the script errors went away, and the buttons all showed back up in the menu in the unified interface. So that is how you would go about fixing those specific portal issues. But in general, it would also be a good idea to just come back here and make sure that any solutions you are using are up to date, because that does create some issues with the unified interface. Everything has to be pretty up to date. Or here we go. It would say upgrade available. That's exactly what it would look like, and you would just say upgrade. So I'm not going to do that now, but that is good to know. And then it'll have the new version here as well. Okay, so finally, what was our last tip? Finally, if you are in using the unified interface, let me go back to that. And you're working in here and you need to run a workflow, but you're not seeing the run workflow button like it shows in the classic interface, this button here. If you're missing that from the unified interface, first look for flow instead of run workflow. They have changed the name for everything. So if whether you're running a flow or an actual workflow, everything's going to be run from this flow button here. I actually don't think I have any contact flows, but or workflows. But if we go to opportunities, you'll see that we can select one of these. And then hit flow, and you'll see there's like a flow section up here, and then there's a run workflow section down below. So again, workflows and flows are going to show up under this flow button. You are no longer going to see the run workflow button in the top menu in Dynamics. If you're missing this button entirely, which has been the case for quite a few of my clients after Microsoft has made the switch over, it's really easy to fix. I can't believe this has not been turned on by default in most cases. But to fix it, we're going to go to that admin.powerplatform.com. You don't need the .microsoft.com. Admin.powerplatform.com. And then you select the environment that you need. Ignore if you have if it says upgrade in parentheses or default in parentheses, ignore this default. You're going to want the production environment. So you would click the ... for the production environment or sandbox, whatever you need, and then hit the settings button. And that's going to take you back to the settings back here. We're going to look for basic behavior. So we can just type in behavior and click basic behavior, and that's going to open up what we need. And you're going to want to make sure this Show Power Automate on Forms and in the sitemap. This needs to be checked. If it is not checked, you will not see that flow button. You are not going to be able to run workflows or flows from the unified interface. Pretty annoying, but thankfully easy to fix. And again, just in case you aren't aware, because Microsoft has been changing this a lot, it started off as Flow, then it turned into Power Automate. So Power Automate, Flow, those are referring to the same thing. So this toggle right here is really important. That is how you get that Flow button to show up in the unified interface, and that is how you enable workflows to be run from the unified interface. Workflows and flows, any of those things. So, all right. So that just about covers it for today for us. Again, just a really quick recap. We talked about adding the missing, or whether they're missing or not, the send invitation or change password buttons. They might actually be there in your system, but if you click them, they might give you a script error. You would just need to go ahead and upgrade the portal solution from admin.powerplatform.com. We talked about troubleshooting workflows from the unified interface. Fortunately, it's a bit more complicated than it used to be. You have to go back into the advanced settings area, open up that workflow and click process sessions, and then finally enabling the flow button, which would also allow you to run workflows, just like classic background or real-time workflows, as well as flows from the unified interface. So we would go to admin.powerplatform.com, go to the settings area, search for basic behavior, and then enable this Show Power Automate on Forms and in the sitemap. All right, so if you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave a comment on one of the blog posts, or email me directly at megan@marksgroup.net and I can help you out. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining, and I hope this was helpful. All right, have a good one.